She let forth a shriek that silenced the sparrows. Clara's wrists were stuck to the ground. Her cheek touched the rough soil. She felt a huge boot press into her back. She was immobile. Caleb was yelling and pleading behind her. As he called her name, his voice broke. She was restrained by one of them. Another dug through the pantry. Glass shattered. Stools fell. Pans fell on the floor. The third involved hitting Caleb with a pickaxe. The snaps reached her ears. Metal, bone, and then quiet. Please, no more. Just silence, no more names. The demands followed. What happened to the silver? She said nothing. Grit and blood tasted in her mouth. They pried up planks with iron rods, ripped shelves off the counter, and threw journals at the walls. Nothing. She's keeping it a secret. He claimed to have money. Locate it. After dragging her to the storeroom, they slammed her up against the boards. She was barely able to stand. Her skirt was stained with blood. She broke through the glass at that point. Her shoulder was cut by shards. She was unaware of it. She bolted. Her face was scratched by twigs. Her chest hurt. The sun was rapidly setting. No time to reflect. Simply leave, continue, avoid falling. Boots pounded on the porch behind her. Curses flew. There were gunshots. She didn't turn around. The forest divided a mile away. The terrain became level, and the homestead stood there at the edge. Amos Carver's farm. Clutching the one object she had grasped, she fell alongside the fence. A heavy, old, splintered wooden box. It was now her anchor, even though she couldn't remember taking it. Amos heard the thud while he was forging steel. He turned, dropped his hammer, and came to a cold stop. Clara Vance was on her knees in the dust, her arms encircling a box as if it were a member of her family, her clothing torn, blood on her jaw and sweat-matted hair. He hurried over to her. Her eyes were frenzied as she gazed up. "Amos," she muttered. "They murdered him. They're on their way." She then passed out. Amos tenderly raised her. Fear covered in flesh, she felt as light as air. He took a fresh rag and placed her on a bench near the fire inside the cabin. Bourbon and water. He put the handkerchief to her side. She gave a quick wince. "Easy," he replied. "Light?" she exclaimed. "Please, it hurts." "I know," he murmured. "I'll be quick." Although it wasn't severe, the blood was sufficient to provide trackers with a trail. He looked at the box. Locked and old, she had clung to it as if it were her heart. What was included within? The wind outside became harsh and too near. Hooves resounded. They were on their way, 3 vicious, armed, and enraged men. When life had been snatched by them, would they accept another? Or was Clara Vance going to discover that not all men run away from a fight? Clara coughed, causing her body to tremble. Her lungs were flooded with the smell of old wood and burnt metal. She briefly lost track of her location. Then she noticed him. Amos sat by the fireplace, silently observing her. She felt as though someone had struck a spark beneath her flesh, causing her side to burn. She winced as she attempted to sit up. With a firm voice, Amos leaned in. "Avoid moving too quickly. You've lost blood." Clara gave a blink. "I didn't think I would make it." "You hardly did." She let out a trembling breath. "Amos, they killed him." "I am aware. Use a pickaxe to beat him." I could hear the fissures. Then they chuckled, continued to rip the house apart, said that he had lied about the silver. Amos paid attention, remained silent. "The problem is," she muttered, "he had no silver at all. They believe he concealed something near the shed, perhaps beneath the stairs. However, Caleb never struck anything. There was hardly enough food for us." Amos massaged his chin. "A man may boast to the wrong person at the wrong time." Clara gave a nod. "He enjoyed talking grandly, claimed that one day we would become wealthy. Promised to give me a farm in Montana, but it was all talk. The house wasn't even ours." She looked at the box, instinctively grabbed that. "I have no idea why. It was beneath the table. Caleb might have concealed anything in it. They may not come for it, but they will." Amos got up, filled a tin mug with bourbon, and gave it to her. She took a sip, coughed once more, and suddenly her face lit up with fear. "They witnessed me fleeing. They'll find me here." Amos remained unflinching. "Give him a chance." "You don't get it," she remarked. "One of them. Large friend with a lip scar. Last autumn he was employed by us. The barn was patched. He is familiar with this region, is aware of our residence." Amos gave a slow nod. Then he is also acquainted with me. Clara gazed. You don't intend to confront them, Amos. He peered out the window. The wind was blowing. A storm is approaching from the east. Have a better idea. She stopped talking. Amos moved a barrel aside and went to the back, under a grimy trapdoor. He looked back. Do you know what a bolt hole is? Clara gave a headshake. We excavated them behind sheds large enough for 2 during the war, sufficiently quiet to offset problems. She straightened her posture. Do you believe they will inspect the barn? I hope they do. He raised the trapdoor. You may either help me set a trap they won't forget, or just sit and worry. Her gaze locked with his. A solitary shot was heard far away as the wind howled through the cabin's openings. It was just one, but it told it all. Amos Carver was aware that their purpose was not to converse. They were going to put an end to it. Who would attack first then? Like thunder over dry ground, a shot rolled through the valley. With his hands on the trapdoor, Amos hesitated. Hooves followed closer, slower, then faster. Clara wrapped the blanket across her shoulders. She muttered, They found the trail. Calm as a man tasting rain after a drought, Amos nodded once. He picked up his weapon, examined it, and shot her a look that said it all. Hide down there, he commanded. No talking, no light. I can help, she said. He gave a headshake. Not tonight. His gaze prevented her from arguing. Not fear, memory the kind soldiers carry. She ascended beneath the floor into the darkness. Amos covered it with a rug and lowered the lid. Blew the lamps out. The room was painted in shadow and blood by the dim red glow of the forge that was all that was left. The horses came to a standstill outside. 3 bold, laughing voices. Evening, old man, one yelled. We are pursuing a woman who went through with injuries while carrying one of our belongings. Amos remained silent. He observed their shapes as he moved to the side window. 2 of the 3 men were mounted, while 1 was on foot and had a weapon. Torchlight illuminates weary but ruthless faces, men who had killed enough to give up. All right, boys, whispered Amos, taking a deep breath. Come on, let's play. He went outside. His clothing was pulled by the wind. Like a ghost, his shadow spread. She ain't here, he declared. The rifle-wielding man smiled. Funny, her blood trail says different. Amos grinned in return. Then you better be sure it's hers before you follow. The large one with the lip scars spat. Carver, keep her hidden! Amos looked him in the eye. I'm not hiding anyone, but I don't like it when men threaten women on my property, the man chuckled. Ain't your land no more? He lifted the firearm. Amos was the first to move. The Forge of Shadows was the source of the initial shot. The second came quickly after. A bullet hit the anvil, sending sparks flying. The horses let forth screams. Men shouted. Clara shielded her ears from the darkness beneath the floor. The cacophony was drowned out by the pounding of her heart. Then a final shrill scream. When blood and coals collided, the forge hissed. Smoke drifted in when Amos unlocked the trap door. His hands were shaking, but his voice was calm. It's finished. Clara gazed. Every one of them. One continues to breathe. He will explain to me why Caleb had to pass away. Sip your coffee or tea. Tell me where you are and what time it is by leaning back. Click the subscribe button if you enjoy stories of perseverance and atonement. You don't want to miss the next event. There is still plenty to be done tonight. The man was still alive, just barely. Collapsed on the fence, his breath rasping wetly and his coat soaked in blood. The air was heavy with iron and smoke. Beside him, Amos knelt. On their faces, the flames from the forge flickered. Why, Caleb? Amos inquired. The man attempted to smile while coughing and spitting red. He owed us. No, you owed him, replied Amos. You were compensated by him for the barn job. The man glanced at the shed. Amos looked after him. There is something there. Something he was afraid about. Amos leaned in. What's in the shed? The man remained silent. Amos covered his wound with a towel. The man let out a scream. Silver, he gave a gasp. Claimed to have silver. Amos scowled. Who said that to you? The man's eyes flickered. Someone in town, he muttered. The old drunk said. By the stream, Caleb found a vein. We came to accept it. Amos got up and used his slacks to clean his hands. Take it, he murmured. You buried yourself in that dirt, boy. The shed door creaked behind him. Clara came out with a lantern. pale but steady. "You shouldn't be out," remarked Amos. "Had to see," she muttered. "I had to be aware." Her gaze first fell on the man's body and then on Amos. "Do you believe he is being honest?" Amos gave the shed a nod. One method of learning. The doors were shoved open. Rust, straw, old tools and dirt were all covered in lantern light. Clara put down the lamp. "This place is empty." Amos kicked the floor. The sound became hollow. He found a trapdoor by kneeling and brushing away dirt. Their gazes met. Amos raised it. Real silver coins were kept in a wooden chest. Numerous ones. Clara gave a gasp. "He was intending to take me by surprise. Stated that we will purchase land in the West." She touched the money with trembling hands. Amos let out a breath. After all, he wasn't lying. The crackle of the forge was the only sound to break the silence. Then quietly, Clara remarked, "He died for this." "And we might live because of it," Amos said, glancing at her. The wind changed outside. From the ridge came the sound of hooves. Too steady for strays, weighty and slow. Amos reached for his firearm. He gave Clara a look. They weren't the only ones pursuing that silver. Will the following rider be an ally or an enemy? The sound of the hooves increased. With his gun in hand, Amos advanced and cast a long shadow across the floor of the shed. Clara grasped the lantern as she stood behind. The flame trembled. Her breath followed suit. There was a lone rider, dusty hat, a tattered coat, and no weapon. He paused at the fence and held up his hand. "Who are you?" Amos asked. The man carefully got off his horse. "Name's Harlan, sheriff from the next valley." Amos lowered the rifle a little. The sheriff walked up to the fence and looked at the dead, the shed, and the silver shimmering in the lantern light. "Looks like a rough night," he remarked. Amos gave a nod. Rough, enough roughness. After hearing gunfire, the sheriff rubbed his chin and went to check if anyone was still alive. Amos gave Clara a quick look. With her hand on the coins and her eyes far away, she was gazing at the chest. The sheriff gave a hat tip. "People bury that silver. Out here, kill for less." The wind subsided as he rode away. The night became quiet. Amos looked across at Clara. "That silver is yours to keep. Make a new start, perhaps Idaho or Wyoming." She gave a head shake. "Amos, I no longer want silver. All I desire is serenity." Slowly he nodded. "Although peace is more elusive than silver, it might occasionally find you when you're not looking for it." Soft and gray dawn arrived. On the ridge behind the homestead, they interred Caleb. The stone at his grave warmed when the sun broke through. Clara stayed there for a while. "You saved my life," she replied softly. I grinned. "Maybe, but you kept me grounded." Weeks went by. The homestead fell silent. Less frequently, the forge glowed. They might occasionally be seen chatting and laughing by the fire in the quiet. Something more powerful than chance binds two souls together. Everybody in town would repeat the same story about the old blacksmith who stood his ground and the widow who ran away through the night. And it would always end the same way. Sometimes the things that are supposed to shatter you end up shaping you. Perhaps that's the lesson, my friend. What if the pain you're escaping is shaping who you're supposed to be? What if you are illuminated by the same fire that left you scarred? The story has done its job, if that makes you feel anything at all. Let me say this from the bottom of my heart before you leave. I'm very appreciative that you're here, observing, listening, and providing encouraging remarks. I've seen your remarks. I'm concerned that some of you stay up late telling these stories. Be sure to look for yourself. These tales are not intended to steal your sleep, but rather to soothe and amuse you. Close your eyes quickly if it's late. The stories will wait. Please pardon me if I don't always respond. My years are creeping up, and I'm more exhausted than I realize from spending so much time at this desk editing. I now care about both your and my health because of this. I appreciate you being here and preserving these historic frontier tales. Tell me now, from whence are you listening?